5 reasons I would not move to New Zealand. Full honesty, and I like this. There's nothing wrong with honesty. I'm gonna take it. It's fine, but I'm very interested to see what she has to say. Let's go.
Hey guys, welcome back to another video and thank you so much for joining me today. As you can see from the title, today we are talking about my 5 reasons to not move to New Zealand. So
Let's
let's
go.
just get a few things out of the way. I'm not saying New Zealand is any kind of horrible place to live or that I hate living here or anything like that. This is more of a list for people who are considering moving here and maybe have been a bit led astray. Maybe you haven't been told the full truth about what it's like actually living here. So my partner and I have been living in New Zealand for the last 5 months on a working holiday visa.
Gotcha.
And these are the things that stand out the most to me as a Canadian living abroad. So number 1 on this list, and it's not in any kind of official order, but the first thing I have on the list is lack of insulation. And if
Okay,
you don't
let's
know,
go.
a lot of the older homes or rental properties in New Zealand do not have any kind of insulation in the walls or the windows.
Yep.
Where I'm from in Canada, it gets so cold that it's literally a requirement to have an insulated home. But here in New Zealand, it gets chilly, but it doesn't get cold to the point where your building infrastructure, like water piping, would be bursting without insulation.
Yeah.
So it's not really a thing here. I would love to delve into the history about why it isn't, but we don't have time for that today. Maybe that's another video in the future. But because the homes are not typically insulated, it means that they're pretty chilly in the winter
Yep.
on the inside. And then in the summer, they're super hot. So I'll just walk you through an example. The place that we're in right now in Christchurch is a unit that's built onto a house. It's not insulated. We have a plug-in electric heater for the living room, and then there's one in the bedroom. This unit faces north, so we get a lot of sun. It gets extremely hot. I would say maybe 25 degrees when the sun is actually shining on the unit.
Yep.
And then at night, it goes down to pretty much whatever temperature it is outside. It's a little bit like living in a camper van, I imagine, where you're so susceptible to the temperatures outside. It's hard to keep a consistent, livable temperature inside. Coming from a country like Canada that has central heating, this was definitely an adjustment for my partner and I. You'll notice that heated blankets are a big thing here. A lot of rentals, Airbnbs, and things like that, even motels and hotels will have heated blankets that are fitted on the actual mattress. So those are plugged in and you have 3 different levels. You can turn them low, medium, and high, and it gets the bed like nice and toasty because it's so dang cold inside these houses. Depending on where you are in the country, especially if you're on the South Island, you're gonna need a bunch of blankets, sweaters, socks, thick socks, slippers, like all the things that you need to keep warm. Essentially, if you're camping, the things you're gonna bring for the nighttime camping, you're gonna need in the winter in New Zealand. The second reason that I don't recommend moving to New
Very interesting point. She's spot on. Here, very bad, the insulation. I'm lucky in my house. I got insulation up top. On the ground, it's concrete, and the walls have somewhat insulation. But this house was built 20 years ago. My parents built this house, so it's very warm. But mind you, before we got so the insulation needed replacing up the top, and now they've got a certain insulation. It's quite thick, and it doesn't over time collapse like the old insulation did. I remember the fella that installed it. He said this stuff is next level amazing. As soon as we put that, this house just went to a whole nother level. We got a heat pump. It's super toasty and warm in here. Majority of homes, if it hasn't been built within the last 10 to 15, 20 years, a modern home, guarantee you don't have insulation definitely in the walls, and you're lucky to have it up top and down bottom. Some places don't have anything. So it's as if you're sleeping outside, which is so bad. It's so bad because it gets cold here, very cold. I've been in homes before we moved into this home, where it gets very, very cold. So you just have to layer up and whatnot. I don't run the heat pump all night because it's in the lounge. I have a heater that goes in the hallway and heats all the rooms up. And literally, I don't feel the cold. Like last night, it was -2, which is pretty cold for here. And I didn't feel anything. We wake up, it's already warm in the lounge. My kids don't know what it's like to be in a cold house. So they're very, very lucky. But majority of homes are old homes built back in the day and very bad insulation. On top of it, if you rent, there's no actual requirement for you to keep a house up to standard, which is crazy because people like young families just around the corner that I know of, they're charging $500-600. There's no insulation. New Zealand's pretty rigged in that way, I believe. I think there should be a standard. If people are going to be paying rent, you need to also do your part as a landlord to make sure it's livable. But I mean, everyone in New Zealand's just used to it. It's just you're just used to it.
New Zealand is the cost of living. Housing is crazy expensive. The average cost of a home in New Zealand is $780,000 to
Crazy.
$980,000. The average rent in New Zealand is over $600 per week.
Per
Now, of course,
week.
this is really region dependent. Any of the bigger cities, you're going to get higher prices in buying a home and renting a home. But the cost of living compared to point number 3 is where it really gets fishy. Now, of course, this is happening all across the world.
Yeah, yeah,
Every
yeah.
major city is going through these massive inflation rates. Rent is crazy expensive. Housing is crazy expensive. But I do feel like New Zealand has a bit of an edge in terms of affordability. I think it's a little more expensive to live here and to rent or buy a house than other
Yep.
countries. Gas is extremely
And that's a very good point. That's why everyone moves to Australia. There's so many Maldives, New Zealanders flocking to Australia. I'm pretty sure, like, was it last year or the year before, something like 50,000 New Zealanders moved to Aussie. Uh, the rent's pretty much the same, but you get a brand over in Aussie, homes are way nicer. And obviously it's warm, so insulation's not really affected, but it's like brand new homes, literally. Here, you're paying $600-700 for a flipping home built back in the 18 flipping hundreds. So that's why everyone goes there. The minimum wage here is very bad. You can't survive off it. I don't know how people survive off minimum wage. Over in Australia, you can go pick up a job and be on $45 an hour. And the current Australian currency is way bigger than the New Zealand. So if I make 100 grand over there, you come back to New Zealand, you exchange it over to 120K. So everyone goes over there. Everyone goes over to the mines. I think I've mentioned this before. They'll go to the mines. You start in the mines without any degree, nothing, just a good work ethic. You start on 130,000 in the mines. Crazy work schedule. I think it's like 2 weeks on, 1 week off, and that's 12-hour shifts around the clock. I think you do half nights, half day, which is crazy. But without a degree, anything 130K just to start off like that, pretty damn good. And you can work your way up. There's people making 300K in the mines. So it's hard work, but it's pretty decent money.
expensive. Lately, we've been seeing it at $2.70 a liter.
Yeah, this is
So on average, if
crazy.
you have a smaller car like we do, it's about 100 New Zealand dollars to fill it. We
Yep.
also find that buying groceries here is quite a bit more expensive
Yep.
than back in Canada. We on average spend $200 to $300 more per month. And we pretty much always shop the sales. We always make sure we get like 90% of what we're getting on sale
Yep.
and meal plan around whatever the specials are. And
Yep.
another thing on the cost of living is that craft beer is really expensive in New Zealand. So my partner and I are huge into craft beer. We love the scene. We love supporting these local breweries. But sometimes in New Zealand, it's a little difficult because buying a 6-pack of beer can be between $22 and $32. And that's for small cans of 330 milliliters. One of the reasons I've heard that craft beer here is so expensive is that the little breweries have to pay the same amount of alcohol tax as the big breweries. So, of course, it means that they have to put their prices up in order to afford to continue their operation.
Interesting.
This is unfortunately a downside because it kind of forces you, if you're on a budget, to buy the beer from the bigger companies simply because they can afford to drop their prices so low. Now, I don't drink a whole lot, but I do like to indulge in a craft beer every once in a while. And if you're going to buy like one single tall can, sometimes they can be like $10, which to me is quite expensive. Number 3 on this list is low wages. We hear it from locals on the
I just said that before. Before we move on to the next one, gas prices are crazy here. Crazy. At one point, it's like $3 a liter. A liter. So, like, I went from filling up my SUV, it would cost me $70. It went up to like nearly $200. Crazy.
internet. We hear it from locals who actually live here, but Kiwis on average get paid less than their Australian counterparts.
Yep.
And that's probably the biggest reason why so many Kiwis move to Australia.
Yep.
On average, Australian workers make $20,000 to $30,000 more
Yep.
than their Kiwi counterparts. And I'll leave a reference link in the description below of the New Zealand
And I got family all in Aussie. I got so many family in Aussie, and their mindset changes. They say here in New Zealand, when you stay, you're very, you don't lose your way in life. Like you're very cultured. They say that, a lot of foreigners think that, well, a lot of my cousins think, man, you guys just don't have money, which is true. But what we do have on the flip side is we're very family orientated. We're always doing things as a family. We don't lose our way of who we are. So it's kind of like a catch 22. Like my mum, for example, lived in Australia from like 5 years old all the way to 15. She went to high school over there. Very keep up with the Joneses over there. So it's all what you look like. Like you can't go inside a shopping mall without having full blown makeup on and the full shebang. My mum vowed and declared she would not bring me and my siblings up in Aussie because of those values that very, how do you put it? Very worldly. I'm not saying all of them. I'm not saying all, but just it's keeping up with the Joneses, trying to show off, your lifestyle, and it's not actually what it seems to be. Like people show, oh, this is our family. We're so happy. Behind the scenes, mate, you're not happy. You know what I mean? So my mum and dad moved back to New Zealand, and they brought us up here, and I'm actually grateful for it. Not saying that I'd never go to Aussie. I've thought about going to Australia. Obviously, big opportunities and whatnot. But yeah, very interesting.
Herald article that I read where it stated that information, because that is wild. I was personally offered a role at a much lower wage than I was expecting, and it turns out that the average salary for that job is actually just over $50,000 per year. New Zealand dollars, so Canadian equivalent's about $41,000 a year. That's really close to their minimum wage, which is $22.70 an hour. Coupled with the extremely high cost of living in New Zealand, this
Doesn't add
makes
up.
it almost impossible to live in this country on a single income. That
Yeah.
means you need to either live with roommates or you and your partner both need to be working, whether or not you have children. Or one of you needs to be making a lot of money.
Yeah.
Number 4 on this list
Yeah,
is
that's the thing is, that's a big reason why families move to Aussie. They're like, we're getting nowhere. There's no way we're buying a house. The wages that we're on are crap. And they move to Aussie. Some people from Aussie, they go to Aussie, come back and live back here in New Zealand, go, there's no difference. But the way that I look at it is if you can make money and stay in New Zealand, you're living the best life. If you can make good money while staying and living the New Zealand way of life, you've got the best life. On top of it, what you got to also realize is we're a small country, and on top of that, we are further away from the rest of the world. So food costs more, gas costs more, um, everything costs more here in New Zealand. So
driving.
she's pretty spot on.
The majority of the roads are pretty decent, especially the major highways. Any highway that has more than one lane, it's easy breezy, no problem. But the majority of the roads outside of that are very narrow and very windy. Drivers in New Zealand speed
Yep.
like crazy. You'll see constant commercials here and billboards telling people to slow down, which probably speaks for itself that this is clearly a problem in this country. You'll hear people here refer to the road toll, which is the number of deaths caused by road collisions.
Interesting.
And that was 378 people in 2022. About 7.8 people per 100,000 die from road collisions.
Wow.
To compare, Canada is at 5.8, according to the Wikipedia page that I looked at. I'll link it down below if you want to research further. It can be very stressful to drive here. And I've mentioned in previous videos, if you are driving here on the roads and you're not super comfortable, pull over and let people behind you pass. This is by far the safest thing to do because the people behind you, if you're not going to move out of their way, they may attempt to pass you when it is not safe, and that can cause a
point.
whole lot of bad things. So this is a big detractor for me. A lot of people had mentioned that driving here was stressful and a little crazy, but I didn't realize that it's actually legitimately dangerous to drive here. More dangerous than driving back in Canada. Of course, the ideal situation is that you come here and you live somewhere where you don't even need a car. That would be great. Number 5 is that it can be a
That's probably the first, like, it's dangerous to drive here. There, it's a bit of an over exaggeration. I can see what she's talking about, but let's be completely honest. It happens all over the world. If she's saying that it doesn't happen in Canada, come on. Everyone road rages. Everyone gets impatient to say that, only New Zealand does it. Yeah, probably a little bit stretched.
A little bit difficult to find full-time permanent work. So on the visa that I am currently on, which is the working holiday visa, I am not allowed to accept permanent work, period. A lot of the job postings that I've been seeing in different cities state that it's a permanent position and that they do not accept applications from overseas or from people who are on a working holiday visa. A lot of companies will not hire someone who is on that kind of a visa, especially for a longer term, more serious position. A lot of the companies do not want to pay the fees in order to support someone moving here to get all their visa paperwork done and to sponsor them. I've applied to a few jobs and I did get a response from someone who pretty much verbatim said that they would not hire someone who needed any kind of support for a visa or that didn't want to live here permanently for the rest of their life. There's a lot of information about there about how easy it is to get a backpacker job here. And I personally haven't seen many of those jobs. When they do come up, it seems like they're filled pretty quickly. If you're like me and you're over 30 years old and you're looking for a more traditional job, whether you're here for a year or 2 years or longer, it can be a little bit difficult unless you have a really in-need skill. I know that most countries have a list of things that they're looking for. And if you have any of those skills, I think it'd be a lot easier for you if you wanted to move here permanently. So those are my 5 reasons why I would not move to New Zealand. Every country has its pros and its cons. And for me, these are the top 5 that would make me not want to live here for the long term. It's still an absolutely amazing country. It's beautiful. It's so incredible to be able to travel here and spend the next year working and living and traveling. But I wanted to make this video to let you guys know if you're looking at moving here, maybe even looking at moving here permanently, that you're aware of the risks and aware of the things that aren't so great. If you have anything you'd like to add to this video, if you have any detractors that...
No, I think overall she's pretty spot on. Like the insulation, correct. The jobs, correct. Expensive, correct. It is very expensive. Like you ask any New Zealanders, it's very hard to get ahead of life. Exactly what I said halfway through is if you can make good money while living the New Zealand way of life, which is kind of kickback cruisy, you're killing it. Like you're killing it. You're doing very, very, very well, which is yeah, which is a little bit funny. Probably the roads was a little bit exaggerated, but I got to give it to her. Everything else was correct.